Hey beauties, we are Alicia and Nicole from Positive Image. We are hairstylists, salon owners, and business coaches here to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of the beauty industry. We are sharing our secrets on creating a salon that thrives. So let's dive in.
Hey, Nicole,
Hey Alicia.
you did something really fun to kick off our podcast life before I even existed.
Yes. I always wanted to start a podcast, or at least when podcasts were starting, and I was a educator for a color company, and I love color. I love the science. I'm a bit of a science nerd when it comes to color and the chemistry. So I did a 5-part series of the basics of hair color and color chemistry. And I released that 5-part series back in 2021 under a different podcast name. And then when I met you and we just had this fun conversation and decided to do our own podcast, I kind of scrapped the idea of the original podcast and turned into Positive Image. But the original podcast actually has a lot of views, and a lot of people say that the information on there is fantastic. So we've always kept it. But when you go into the library, you have to scroll way back to the very beginning to find them. And then, yeah. So we've decided to re-release.
Yeah, especially because we're on a little summer hiatus. So, here is one of them, and we hope you enjoy.
I'm so excited to be here today to help share all of the education that I have and kind of build something that's unique, something that you can listen to on an off day, that's really quick, that just inspires you to create and it inspires you to learn more about your industry and your craft. I decided to do this podcast so that I could basically take all the knowledge that I have as an educator and that I have learned as a hairstylist and spread it around the world. So please take as much or as little as you like. So today, what we're going to be covering is what is hair? The chemical makeup and the composition of the hair itself. Now, this is a pretty big topic, and I'm going to try and simplify it and break it down as much as I possibly can. So we'll start with the composition of the hair. Why do we need to understand it? Well, I guess becoming familiar with your canvas, the hair, is really important. So before you even start to do anything to the hair, like color or cut it, you really need to understand it as a fabric or the material that you're working with. Essentially, what the hair is in its simplest form is that it has 5 elements, 2 solids and 3 gases, which are sulfur, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. And then these 5 elements are arranged to create 19 amino acids. Those amino acids chain together to create proteins, and then the proteins link together to form polypeptide bonds. These bonds are really important in the hair. Why? Because they give the hair strength. They give the hair the ability to grow long. Have you ever flat ironed your hair or curled your hair with a hot tool and the ends break off? Or you've had your hair colored, or you're doing hair color yourself and the hair becomes weak, almost slimy, wet cotton? Well, this is all to do with the bonds in the hair. So essentially, what they are is that the links within the hair that gives it strength, elasticity, and the shape. So these bonds, 3 of them, are the most important part of the hairdressing standpoint. So the first one is the sulfur bond. And you may have heard of this bond in the past from products like Olaplex or bond building products that hairdressers use to chemically lighten the hair. It's kind of like, we call it hair insurance. So what that product does is essentially it helps strengthen the sulfur bond within the hair so that we can push, or the hairstylist can push the hair just a little bit more to get it a little bit lighter without the hair breaking off. Really important. So we'll go in order of strength. So a little bit about the sulfur bond. The sulfur bond, which is also called the disulfide bond, is comprised of 6 to 8% of the total bonds within the hair itself. It's the strongest, it's the most stable bond in the hair. These bonds exist out of the 2 sulfur atoms. They can only be broken, other than excessive heat, by applying certain chemicals to the hair. They give the hair permanent reformation. So what does that mean? That means that if you break the bonds around a perm rod and then you put the bonds back together, that's essentially what a perm is. These bonds are the basis of the keratin chain, so it gives the hair the strength. The keratin gives the hair the strength. The position of the sulfur bond determines the hair shape. So if the bonds are in a curl formation, your hair is going to be curly. If the bonds are in the straight formation, your hair will be straight. The next bond from this is the salt bond, which is also called the ionic bonds. Salt bonds are weaker than sulfur bonds. They give the elasticity to the hair. They give the hair partially its strength. And these bonds are broken when they're in acidic or an alkaline environment and are reconnected when the hair is dry. So you're ever wondering why your blow dry or flat iron is ionic? This is why, because it helps to strengthen and keep those bonds in check when you're using your flat iron or curling iron. Then we have our hydrogen bonds. These are the weakest bonds in the hair. And although together with the salt bonds, they comprise 80% of the cross bonds within the hair, they're still the weakest bonds. So they're connected with the oxygen and the hydrogen atoms, and they keep the keratin chains in place. These bonds give the hair the elasticity, and the hydrogen bonds are broken down when the hair is wet. This is why when we have curly hair and we use a blow dryer and a round brush, we can get the hair straight and the hair stays straight until you wet it again. So it's the hydrogen bonds in which you are affecting. So they'll give you temporary reformation when the hair is blow dried or styled with rollers. And it's these bonds that make it possible for the hair to be reformed temporarily until it's dampened down again. So essentially, when the hair gets wet, the hydrogen bond is what you're breaking. So now we're going to move into the structure of the hair itself. So what is that? When we look at the hair, it has 3 parts to it, which is the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla. So if you think of the hair, and we're getting into the cortex and the cortex essentially is the room that you are in. Think of the cuticle as the walls around that room, with the medulla being essentially a rope hanging from the ceiling to the floor within the room. So the medulla is actually the center of the hair, the middle part of the hair. It's mostly empty or hollow, and it's made out of existing dead cells. It has particularly no function when it comes to hair and hair color, and in some cases it's not present at all. So as a hairstylist, we really don't worry ourselves with the medulla at all. We just need to know it's there. So then our next area is the cortex, so the room. This is the middle layer. So the cortex essentially gives the hair the volume. It gives the hair the body. It's where the hair's natural melanin is kept, all of the pigments. So if you're coloring your hair, this is where the artificial pigments go to change the natural pigments that are in the hair. And this can be altered by chemical services. So perm, solid colors, something along those lines. This is also where the bonds of the hair is kept as well. I hear a lot of clients saying, I love it when my hair is colored because it feels like it's got so much volume and body. So essentially what we're doing is when we're adding pigments to the hair, we're expanding the room. We're making that individual hair strand feel thicker and fuller. And then when you times that by however many hairs we have on the head, you're going to notice an increase or a significant increase of volume within the hair. From the cortex, we're going to move on to the cuticle. And the best way I've kind of come up with thinking about the cuticle is shingles on a roof of a house. Every ethnicity of hair, so we go from Asian to Black to Caucasian, have different layers of cuticles. So typically there's 6 to 11 layers. what the cuticle layer is the thinnest surface layer of the hair, and the cuticle protects the hair shaft. So if your cuticles are damaged, the hair is going to be damaged. Really nice hair, when the cuticle is lying flat, it looks shiny. It has luster. It can look really, really pretty. So what's that made up of is overlapping cells, free of melanin, which is a natural pigment. This indicates the hair health. It indicates the condition of the hair. Within the cuticle itself, it has different layers. It has the endocuticle, which is the inside layer of the hair. It has the exocuticle, the outside layer of the hair, and the epicuticle, the middle layer of the hair. So when it comes to the cuticle pH, it's a really important part. The hair's pH is a 4.5 to a 5.5. That's the neutral state of the hair itself. So when you go higher on the pH scale, so if you're up to, say, a 6, well, what's that going to do to the hair? It's going to lift the cuticle. It's going to lift the hair a bit more. So think about when you're a kid and in school and you have those duotangs with metal tabs. The first time you ever open one of those tabs, you can never get it to look like it did the very first time. This is what the cuticle of the hair is like. So the first time that we color the hair, we're lifting the cuticle of the hair, and we can never get it to lay flat as we can as when we started tampering with it. Unfortunately, really, this is our job. It's important for us to know what we're doing to the hair, because if we keep overworking that cuticle, well, then it's going to slough off. And then our clients are going to say, my hair is just not feeling as shiny and sleek and dry. And you're going to blame it on a product that they're using. But in all actuality, is the color that we're opening and closing the cuticle way too much in the hair. So if we're using something that's really strong in pH, either too low or too high, we can essentially damage the cuticle. So there's two types of melanin found in the hair. There's the eumelanin, which is the black-brown pigment, which is easy to remove. It's bigger, it weighs less. Then we have the pheomelanin, which is the red-yellow pigment. This pigment is really difficult to move. It's smaller and it weighs more. All the hair, with the exception of white hair, contains this melanin in varying degrees, which creates endless varieties of natural hair color, black and brown hair up to blonde. So black, dark brown hair consists predominantly of the eumelanin, and then the lighter strawberry blonde has more of the pheomelanin in the hair. All hair, with the exception of white hair, contains melanin in varying degrees, which creates endless varieties of natural hair color. Black and dark brown hair contains predominantly eumelanin. Light brown consists of a mixture of eumelanin and pheomelanin, and the lighter the color, the less eumelanin in the hair. Blonde hair can be a combination of low pigment concentration and or pheomelanin content. Each hair follicle has a finite ability to produce melanin, which gives the hair its color. So I hope you guys got a really good understanding and idea of what the bonds are, what the hair is like, and kind of how to work with it a little bit more.
Thanks so much for listening in today. The Positive Image Podcast exists to empower hairstylists and salon owners with real conversations, practical tools, and authentic stories, building confidence, connection, and community in the beauty industry. Subscribe to stay tuned in for our next episode.